I'm doing a sort of genius thing here, so just pretend like this background's yellow, okay? Another day, another war crime, turning children into snow. You're poorer than you've ever been. Profits mysteriously grow. This lyric is alluding to the war crimes happening in Palestine, although really it can apply to a lot of things in this modern age. But during the specific time that this was written, that be playing a lot on my mind, as I think it was for a lot of people. All that and more of gory details keep you glued to your TV, but not before sponsors prey upon your insecurities. I got this line about profits. I imagine there was like this news channel where they've got two completely separate stories. One about mass poverty, one about billionaires getting richer. But they'll never actually make the very clear link between those two issues. It's, oh, there's mass poverty. Oh, and also there's these really rich billionaires. Ignore them. Don't look at them. There are some channels that'll try and distract you from some of the actual causes of the issues people are having. Don't you wish you weren't so ugly, stupid, awkward, and afraid? Maybe your parents would have loved you if you bought a new champagne. Here I start covering a bit more on how advertising is bad. I don't need to tell you this. I think we all sort of innately understand the issues that come with advertising and how, try and make you feel worse about yourself just so they can sell you a product. Our burgers are all feminists, our soda is depressed. Sweatshops breaking laws on slavery, still they'll never get addressed. Burgers are all feminists. I got reminded of that time that McDonald's decided to whip around their golden arches to become a W for women's rights. You think, okay, are you really doing much for women's rights though? I don't know. I think women have harder problems in their lives than whether the golden arches say M or W. And then you had the shocking Burger King tweet, which that went about as poorly as it could possibly go. Our soda is depressed. That's specifically referencing Sunny D, where they posted on Twitter, I just can't do this anymore. And yeah, literally their whole advertising strategy was, what if this orange juice had depression? Tell you what our sponsors really want you to believe. Might not be the truth, but we've got 3 chords up our sleeve. Fact and fiction mix it too, you've got the right idea. Shiny piece of plastic reels in bigotry and fear. You might not notice that I'd say 3 chords up our sleeve rather than 3 cards up our sleeve. Fun little play on words and, of course, reference to 3 chords in the truth. When I use the term shiny piece of plastic to reference bait, that sort of metaphor, I guess, is pretty much directly lifted from Underscore's song Duh. You put on the end of your line. Is it really alive? I thought that was a great piece of imagery. I thought, I want to use that. I'm gonna take this. Mine now. Shove it down all your throats. See how far it goes. Won't stop till you choke. Won't stop till you leave. The truth at the door. They're invading our shore. It's our slander. Pure propaganda. Here you see I'm very upfront in what this song is about. I don't leave much to the imagination. This is not a metaphorical song. I had a bunch of political points I wanted to make and I just threw all of them into the song and there we are. I'm quite proud of how I flipped the word sure. I do this thing where I have the end of the line and the start of the next line share the same word. So I've got, won't stop till you choke, won't stop till you leave, and leave the truth at the door. They're invading our shore, and sure it's all slander. And then, just very direct, calling out what I see as propaganda in specifically very politicized news channels. But, when you got the American ones, you got Fox and whatever, but also over here you've got GB News, which is getting more popular than it ever should have. And that's not to mention all of the traditional newspapers, which dying breed, but even so. Piles and piles of content specially picked to make sure you don't close our app. Fund research on addiction, always good to have a roadway map. This second verse, I really focus in on how social media has become a lot of people's main source of news, which is very worrying. I don't think an algorithm that is specifically designed to keep your attention for as long as possible should be in charge of the news you get. Keeping you on their platform for as long as possible is their only goal. That's the way they make money. Put through the right so they're extremist, but won't peek behind the curtain. If they do, then spread conspiracy so they don't know for certain. Here I go kind of a bit into conspiracy theory territory. I don't know if that's actually intentional, but it is true that a far-right pipeline is much easier to fall into than a far-left pipeline. Now, anyone who's been on YouTube knows that occasionally it'll try to pull something and be like, you want to try hating women? I heard you hate the new Marvel movie. Do you want to hate black people? There's more news than ever, more to pick to craft a narrative. No longer corporate media, AI now controls the way you live. Oh yeah, here we go into the AI section. I've learned quite a lot about AI over the last couple of years, and it's not made me like it more. You also tend to find the people who are real sort of AI bros, you know, they're really into AI, really into ChatGPT and whatever. They really don't understand how it works. They'll go to ChatGPT and go, ChatGPT, are you real? And it will go, yes, I am real. And they go, oh no. Like, no, that's not how it works. It's predictive text. Well, I think because it copies the ways humans talk and the ways human beings express themselves, that means it has its own ideas that it can express. And no, again, that's not how large language models work. Post what we want, so will your peers, and if you don't, you're left behind. This artificial beauty crushes you to keep you all in line. Here I start talking about the negative effects that platforms like Instagram have, especially on sort of teenage girls. Everyone's got to show off the best version of their lives, and that's not reality. I always thought we'd end up crushed under a meteor strike. Guess I watched too many movies, it's what the media likes. Who would have guessed Armageddon would be so dull? Each horseman's got a sponsor, so their pockets are full. Here I'm really trying to set a dystopian mood here, so I'm literally talking about dystopia. I'm talking about Armageddon. I've just realised immediately after my line about watching too many movies, I then talk about Armageddon, which obviously is exactly the type of film that my first two lines are talking about. I don't remember that being intentional, but I'm retconning it, so it is now. I'll take the credit for it. I still believe there's someone out there who can set us all free. A perfect knight in shining armor, revolutionary. That is if they don't end up dead or thrown in jail or poisoned by the penny. It's a hell of a sale. Here I'm already building up the character of this song. This song is sung entirely in a different character to me. So it's a character that does not hold some of the views that I have. So for example, this is the character that has kind of fallen into that doomer mentality of, oh, you know, we're all gonna die. There's no point voting. There's no point doing anything. There's no point taking any sort of political action because the game's rigged. And it's like, okay, well, maybe you can't create a sort of socialist utopia, but political action can still do a lot. And I'd argue that making small victories over a large amount of time is better than doing nothing and just feeling good about yourself. You know, if you have two parties, neither of them are perfect, but one is better than the other, you could either vote for the not as bad party, vote for a party you actually believe in, because that's still political action, or I guess you could just not vote and just stay at home. As you can see in this song, this character is waiting for someone else to do the political action for them, so they don't actually have to do anything. This time better lock your doors, this time it's true. It's really 1984. It's a very corny line, I know, it's definitely meant to be. That's why I add that little movie clip. You know, again, it goes into this sort of doomer mentality. It shows that this character maybe is a bit dramatic. You know, not everything is 1984. That can't be your reference point for everything in life that you don't like. We're the last generation again and again and again and again. Feels like this could be the end. Is it 2012 again, like they thought in the noughties, the 90s, the 40s, but I think... Obviously 2012 referencing the Mayan calendar when they thought the world was going to end 2012, that's what the Mayan calendar said, and... yeah, no, we're still here. That ended up not happening. I talk about the noughties, the 90s, the 40s. Originally, I was trying to get a reference into the 60s. I was going to go, right, the noughties, the 60s. I ended up going for the 90s, mostly because I thought it sounded better. I said the 80s or the 60s. It just didn't feel as right as saying the 90s, even though the 90s was actually a fairly peaceful time. Feels like a final goodbye. Science singing our lullabies, but it's gonna get a whole lot worse before we die. Again, just showing the negative outlook that this character has, and the over dramatization with, sirens singing the lullabies. It's very dramatic. You go and vote, I'd rather stay at home and keep my pride. Why bother changing anything if we're still gonna die? Is it just me, or should you stand against genocide? Just think of all the weapons both parties have supplied. Again, this was written with Israel in mind. Specifically, this was written during the 2024 US election, because you had a bunch of people who were kind of saying, well, aren't Republicans and Democrats kind of the same party? They're both Zionists. Yes, they are both Zionists. That is bad. But I also think you should look at all of the rest of the factors that will affect people. If you are going to be a single issue voter, that's an important issue. But also, you could bully the Democratic Party into taking some action. It'd be pretty difficult to do, but the Republicans, no chance in hell. On top of all of the rest of their plans and their disregard for a lot of things, actually. Free speech, general laws, the ability for people to vote. You wanna make a change, you gotta tear the system down. Free the people, kill religion, and destroy the crown. The poor will rise, yeah, it'll happen any second now. It's time to run, cause we're the last generation again. So that's a very drastic view of how political change will work, and it's not a realistic one. Change doesn't happen all at once like that. Change is usually fairly gradual, and there are also going to be people who don't agree with you politically, so you're not going to have everyone on your side, especially if your side is particularly niche. If you want to sort of destroy capitalism, capitalism's not working for 99% of people who live here, so yeah, it probably should be, but that's easier said than done. I thought it would be me, I thought it could be us. I wanted to believe, but my ideas were crushed. You say it's not as simple as waiting around for change. You're trying to make a ripple. I'm waiting on a wave. So here I basically just spell it out as clearly as possible. It's a song about how taking political action is good, actually. And just because you feel like you can't do much doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything at all. Because, yeah, you're unlikely to achieve the world that you want to live in. But you can live in a world that's closer to it. But you're not going to do that if you don't vote. If you want to criticize people for voting for a party that's centre-left rather than left because they don't think that the left party is going to get in, you've got to actually be doing stuff in order for that criticism to be worth anything. I have this habit of trying to be everyone's hero, viewing their lives like a game where I'm batting zero. This was inspired by some of my friends having, I don't want to say messy breakups with each other, because it was a bit more than that. Not my story to tell, really. When friends fall out with each other, I've had a history of trying to be the one to bring them back together again, and after so many times where it hasn't worked and it's just blown up in my face, I started to come to the realization that, oh, maybe sometimes there's not anything you can do. Forcing the pieces together, but they just won't fit. Times run out, move along. I think this might just be it. As the bricks get to tumbling, my hands keep on fumbling. A sort of Jenga imagery, I guess. Me sort of trying to piece these two people's relationship together, and neither of them particularly wanted me to do that. But I've seen this before, and I know how it ends. I forfeit my turn, no more of these games. I want it to stop, but it's out of my hands. I wish Apollo had left me out of his plan. In Greek mythology, Apollo gave Cassandra the gift of prophecy. I'm using that story as a metaphor for me being able to recognize this relationship as failing, but not being able to stop it. So I can see what's happening, but there's nothing I can do to fix it. An ocean away, but there's no chance in hell that I'm sailing. If I forced myself into this fight, I'd already be failing. Strangle the words in my throat, I can't let them escape. Twist the words, how absurd, what a beautiful shape. Yeah, in the second verse, I just say, nope, completely disassociate from this. It's got nothing to do with me. I just tap out completely. I think, right, I'm not taking part. I'm not trying to step in. I'm not doing anything. Not my problem. Thank God I'm finally getting taller. Every year it grows another inch. I feel my clothes are getting smaller. Can't wait to know when I'll be wrong again. Here in the bridge is where I realise again that things are more complicated than it seems. Now, it turns out that different situations have different solutions. I'm realising that actually there's a lot of nuance to this. Here I specifically use getting taller as a way of saying I aged. I sort of lifted that from Phoebe Bridgers in the Garden song. I don't know how, but I'm taller. She sort of uses the same metaphor. I used to cry at everything, like when it turns to spring. You can put all your chips in that, I'll show you what works, never mattered what is worse. My reaction's still the same, for just a fraction of the pain. Yeah, God, as a kid, I used to cry all the time. I would cry at the absolute littlest thing. I get stressed, I cry. I get angry, I cry. I think mostly it was, I'd feel a big emotion and I wouldn't know how to handle it, so I'd just be like, ugh. Obviously, as I became a teenager, I started to clamp down a little bit more. I wouldn't be processing the emotion, but I wouldn't be crying, so all good. So as I grew up, I tried to keep it all inside. Thought that it was pride, I was just trying to survive. Adapt to my surroundings, didn't know what I was founding. When I tried to let it out, I found that I'd forgotten how. I sort of started realizing that at points in my life where I felt like I should be crying, because I was sad, I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be crying, I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to bring that out of me. I can't believe that I believed I'd have it all figured out at 23. I'd have a partner, 3 kids, and a degree. I'd be more confident than when I was 16. I'm not 23 yet, I'm 22, and I will be for another year, pretty much. I had the line, I can't believe that I believed already. And I thought, oh, I'll have it all figured out when I'm 23, even though I'm not 23 yet. But, you know, it sort of rhymes, and that's good enough. Yeah, talking about some of the over-ambitious plans you might have for yourself as a kid. I do actually have a degree, though, so that has kind of aged poorly before it's even been released. There's only one change that was actually real. I never saw it coming, it was not my ideal. I now know enough to know I know nothing, so no sweeping statements, no grand reveal. I'm just starting to remember how to feel. This was written when I was in uni, first year away from home, completely living on my own, and I was sort of a lot more emotionally vulnerable with myself. I was beginning to notice that, oh, I can process my emotions a lot more clearly. It's nice. Used to cover songs that others had wrote. Now most of the songs that I sing are my own. It still feels the same, 'cause between the day it was written and the day it released, I have grown. This whole verse was actually written for a completely different song. A song that isn't anywhere close to finished, certainly wasn't designed to be for this album. I just felt like this verse really fit the themes of this song. You know, it's all about how much I've grown and how much I've matured over the last 3 years. Obviously, this is the first EP that I've ever written. Most of the music I did before was just doing covers of other people's songs. But, you know, now I'm starting to write my own, and, well, I'm a different person than the person who wrote most of these songs. So it does sort of feel a bit weird. You know, I can remember doing them, but I don't recognize myself in those songs. Tracks on this album took 3 years to make, yet I've gotta stand by my words all the same. Maybe I'll lie, 'Cause I could write the guide on sharing everything but my mistakes. Here I'm specifically talking about Apollo and the Papers. So Apollo, that is over 3 years old now. I want to say I started writing that song spring 2022. So that's taken so long to write. But I wrote that song when I was 18 and I am now 22. So a lot's changed. I lied to you right from the start. Oh, I lie to anyone to make me feel smart. I've always been single, not always by choice. And I think any natalists make some good points. When I talk about, specifically in the chorus, that I imagined I'd have a partner and 3 kids, that's not really true. I think antinatalists make some good points. That's basically me just saying I don't want kids. When I had the line about, oh, I believed I'd have 3 children, no, I didn't. I never wanted 3 children. Thought I grew up, guess I'm just growing mild. Guess these are just confessions from a quarter-life child. So turn the song off if you want something real. Ironic that the lyricist doesn't know how he feels. Nice, tying it up with a how to feel. I just realised I did that. I used songwriting devices when I didn't even know I did, so I can take the credit for that. I can't necessarily say I've grown tougher as I've grown older. I've just sort of become more aware of my emotions. I finished that bridge by saying, yeah, if you want something that's real and honest, that's not something I'm giving you in this EP. This is the most honest I am in this whole, the rest is not particularly honest. 5 p.m. when they land on the beach, trying to stay alive. Met with pure hostility as soon as they arrive, fleeing from the bloodshed with nothing to their names. Politicians weaponizing fear to reach their aim. So, I went to an Eddie Reader concert. Between 2 of the songs from the concert, she was telling the story about going to a seaside bar and watching a dinghy boat come in with a bunch of immigrants. She saw how roughly the police were treating these immigrants, and everyone else in the bar saw too. And they all invited the immigrants in. Everyone was friendly, everyone was looking after the children, making sure everyone was fed, everyone had enough water, and they spent the rest of the evening talking to these immigrants who had just come off the boat. The story itself, I don't know if it's entirely true. It does feel a bit like, oh, and everyone clapped. There are parts of it that read a bit too good to be true, but it's a nice story, and I got inspired by that, so that's what this whole first verse is based on. Seaside bar where a few dozen strangers noticed the children as they're locked up in cages, never said a word cause they already knew. Drinks on us is what a human would do. Sharing glasses and stories till dawn, welcoming them in with open arms, cause we're not who they want us to be. Yeah, so now we're sort of getting into what the main point of the song is, which is you get sort of so much hatred in the media, in the newspapers, all that, specifically against immigrants. There's a real push for immigrants to be the new distraction. A lot of people's issues where sometimes the government, sometimes billionaires really don't want you thinking about these issues, so you'll always have a scapegoat. It's not our fault you can't get a job, it's a minority here. Pick one out of the list for whichever target you want as your distraction. Don't let the papers break you down. They don't speak for anyone to prove it, look around. So don't let the papers break you down. It's not weak to cry, so let it out and cry, cause I wanted this to be sort of an uplifting song about human nature being inherently good. You know, there are so many atrocities that are going on in the world that you could be mistaken for thinking that human beings are just inherently evil and self-serving. I wanted to make a song that pushes back on that. I want to believe that people are inherently good, even when evidence can sometimes be to the contrary. When you're sinking fast into the ocean, lungs are filling, drowning in emotion, I'll be here, don't throw your spark away. So break the dam and swim in the destruction. Don't believe the lies and the corruption. Swim the shore, you'll live another day. So yeah, I'm using the sort of metaphor of drowning as a representation of feeling out of control. There's so many things in life that you just can't control. But if you can find your way through some of the worst times of your life, you will come out the other end. I wouldn't say necessarily stronger, because that's not always the case, but you will come out of it alive. And that's pretty good going. That's sort of what I'm trying to get at with those lines. 3 deep breaths and she looks into the mirror. Used to be cloudy, now it's a little bit clearer. Talking with her parents, the truth starts to sprout. Like herself, it's all coming out. Here I start talking about one of the media's other fascinations, which is trans people. The news absolutely loves talking about the dangers of trans people. I want to say in the past 5 years, they've sort of all of a sudden become this huge target because so many millionaires just can't seem to stop talking about them for some reason. I'm sorry, is this really a feminist issue if that is the only feminist issue you talk about? Women are going through a lot. They were so happy that she could be comfortable calling herself she. Deep inside she knew she'd be respected, but paranoia had already infected. It's a story about a coming out that went well. The cycle of news can make people seem a lot more cold-hearted than they actually are. Not to say that's everyone's experiences. I know there are many trans people who have come out to their parents and it's gone very, very badly. But there are also ones where it went very, very well. It's not that everyone hates trans people, it's that the media pushes trans people as a scapegoat for a lot of people's problems. We're made to feel like being truthful makes us wrong. The labels set aside for us were made up all along. But progress is always an uphill battle. Here I'm sort of talking about the queer community as a whole. We seem to be always facing new issues, and progress is never a straight line. That's ironic, I know. I wasn't trying to make a pun there. But yeah, it isn't just things get better and better and better and better. Things get better and better, and then there's a push to make them worse, and then they get better again. We do seem to be at a point where things are getting worse currently. There seems to be Section 28 rules again. We seem to be doing that, but just for trans people. We can't allow social transition for some reason. Because, you know, God forbid a teenager wants to change their name and get a haircut. The Cast Review, a medical review that's specifically being used to justify a lot of transphobic rhetoric and transphobic policy these days. It literally talks about the dangers of social transition being that most people who socially transition as teenagers end up medically transitioning as adults. Truly a mystery. I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm basically saying how things are bad at the moment and they look like they're getting worse in a lot of ways, but they will get better. I've always been good at keeping it hidden, even from myself. In a horror film, I'm the one that got bitten. I just heard everyone else. There's a lot of film-based metaphors in this song. Horror film, one that got bitten. That's talking about the trope in zombie films where someone gets bitten by a zombie and then just goes, you know what, why don't we just hide this and have this be a problem for everyone else later on? You're the hero of my story. I got recast in season 2. I'm a walking cliche, baby, and there's only one of you. Again, carrying on with the sort of film and TV as a metaphor. There's just a general story about love, I guess. Specifically, this character is trying to lie to themselves about being in love, and they can only keep that going for so long before they eventually realize, oh no, I have to sort of accept it, don't I? I can never tell you cause I know you don't feel the same, man. If I were you, I wouldn't even look in my face. So yeah, if I see a couple cracks in the mirror, I'm cracking up. Cause if I turn it to a joke, then I don't have to patch it up. So yeah, the character obviously has quite a lot of insecurities about themselves. Yeah, you can see that based on the line about being cast earlier on. But yeah, they talk about looking in the mirror and not really liking what they see. They've got a lot of self-worth issues. Oh, and I've still got scars from the last time I got drunk and said too much. I used to get faded, now I could fade away with just one touch. You said that you hated me, damn, now why do you still call me up? I know you don't like me, but I won't be the one to break this up. When I talk about scars, that's very much sort of emotional scars, oversharing, and then very quickly regretting it. When I say I used to get faded, that is a lie. This is a character. I don't do drugs. The story of this gets a little fuzzy because in the verse it suggests that this character is in love with someone and not accepting that, and in the verse it suggests this character is in a relationship and knows it's going poorly. It wasn't based on a specific story that I had in my head. This was more just trying to capture an emotion. So whilst the lyrics themselves aren't always technically true, they're emotionally true. And I think that's the sort of important part. I won't confront the truth. Now it's me and the sun. Now it's me and the sun. Till there's nothing else that I could ever do. Now it's me, the sun, and the moon. Yeah, me, the sun, and the moon. I read somewhere there's this Buddhist saying that goes, there are three things that never stay hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Turns out whether that's actually true is a little debatable. Apparently it has its origins in an actual Buddhist quote, but it's been sort of shortened and condensed and simplified over time, so a lot of the nuance of the original's kind of been lost. Either way, I heard that phrase and I really liked it. I thought I could make a song around that. The chorus is this character not hiding anymore, specifically about their love. Could you well like caffeine, cause you're making my heart beat fast. Now you're laughing, cause I thought I was smart these last 3 weeks. To stay up late and repeat and repeat and repeat all the words that you said. Again, a lie, I haven't cut out caffeine. I don't drink a lot of it, but I haven't cut it out of my system. I still drink tea. As a uni student, I had a fair amount of Monster. But yeah, this is the character, so it doesn't really matter if things are not true to me. They're true to the character. Carrying on the story of the verse, where they're just replaying everything that their love interest has said to them. And I don't wanna see your face again. Still, I kinda wanna be with you at the end of the world. Yeah, I put all my chips on you, it's a blur, can't see clearly when you're in view. So there are some sort of maybe mixed feelings perhaps. Maybe they've gone through a breakup with this person, but they still care for them deeply and they still want to get back together. And baby, all I want is to be your only friend, your only confidant, not confident. Cause I know what you want that. I was so happy with the confident flip. That's why I added that section of the verse. I came with that line, I was like, yeah, have that. So thank you, Apollo, for giving me a gift, but I don't need to see the future, I already know what it is. Everyone knows cause it's written in the script that I will mess up all of my relationships. Look at me incorporating previous songs. I'm like a real musician. But yeah, this carries on the metaphor from Apollo. Talk about, you know what, I don't need to see the future. I know what's going to happen here. This character can tell through his life experiences, you know, how this is going to end. And it's not going to end happy. I'm a loaded gun hanging on the wall on the Amity Island beach. I'm the bomb underneath the table, they're all waiting for Act 3. I think this might be one of the first bits of the song I wrote. Yeah, this is where all the film metaphors really came from, because I wrote this little bridge. Loaded gun, that's Chekhov's gun. If a gun's hanging on the wall, it's got to be shot by the end of the play, or else why have it there? Amity Island Beats, that's Jaws. Bomb underneath the table, that's how Hitchcock explained suspense and how that works.
4 people are sitting around a table. Suddenly, a bomb goes off. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different.
There's 3 things that never stay hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Darkness is gone and the sun has risen. The sky's a hazy blue. Throughout the song, I've hinted at the proverb, but now I'm actually just stating it. Yeah, it's supposed to be the character coming to realizations and things turning around in their life. Can't believe it took me over 7,000 suns and moons to realize I am whole, I don't need you. 7,000 days is about 19 years. So it's me saying, yeah, I can't believe it took me over 19 years of my life to make this realization that I'm okay being single. I'm okay being by myself. And that's everything, I think. Yeah, those are all the lyrics explained. I hope that gave some insight into my thought processes when writing this album. And thank you for watching.